You're listening to episode 179, Laura's Story: Why Therapeutic Play is Essential for Kids Going Through Healthcare Experiences. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Child Life on Call. This podcast is a safe place for parents to share their stories about what it's like to have a child that has a medical experience, diagnosis, disease, and or everything in between. We know there's power in sharing stories, and that power multiplies when you can listen to other parents who have walked a similar path to yours. Giving and getting advice is great, but hearing how another parent navigates the complexities and nuances of healthcare is even better. As a child life specialist, my role is to support, validate, and provide emotionally safe spaces for kids and their families, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you. In addition to parent stories, we sprinkle in some expert episodes every now and again that have content for both parents and professionals in the field of healthcare, all with the mission to empower parents to be confident advocates and partners with the care team during healthcare experiences. We're so glad you're here. Hello, my friends. This episode is going to feel like a breath of fresh air because Laura Sufka has been a child life specialist for many years and speaks so eloquently about the essential nature of play for kids, not just with the goal of learning or teaching them something, but simply play and the power that it has. She has worked in a clinical setting and now is a private practice child life specialist and is so well connected in her region and just gets to work with kids and families after they have left the hospital. What she does is so essential, and today she's going to give us some key insights into what her goals are, how she works with families, and why what she does is so important. All right, so let's get started with our conversation with Laura Sufka. I'm sitting here in my office in Texas, and she's way up there in Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And we have been in each other's lives via social media and Instagram and now the Child Life Circle for a long time. And so it's like very cool to get to talk with you. And I know on a personal level, your positivity, your support, the little messages you send me mean more than I could ever say. So I'm just so excited to finally get to know you via the virtual world.
I'm super excited about today too. I feel like it's so weird to not really ever meet somebody yet feel like you can just add a little like joy to somebody's day or just like root them on and just provide a little encouragement. So that's always nice. Especially I know you have littler ones than I do. And so I'm like, oh yeah, been there, done that. And you're rocking it every day. We're like doing our very best. So
Yeah, you were specifically hilarious when I was going through the fish issue that we just became a fish family and it was
yeah.
already drama and tears before the fish were even in the tank. Okay.
And I was like, yeah, you're done. You're fine with one. Just be done with that and it's fine. And you're giving so much to your children and fish don't need to be a part of that.
Your advice was so good too, because I was asking you about a snail to clean the tank. And you're like, whatever new comes to the fish bowl, like is from their money.
Yes, totally.
Why don't you just take some time introducing yourself, who you are, where you live, a little bit about your work and your life and all that good stuff?
So I'm Laura Sufka. I have been a child life specialist for 23 years, which is just phenomenal and amazing. When I first started my career, I've always worked in Minnesota, but I've worked at different facilities, different children's hospitals, different community-based hospitals. I am a dabbler and I love to keep learning. I'm a lifelong learner. And so I'm not specifically like moving jobs, I'm just moving within these amazing children's hospitals that are growing. When I started 23 years ago, child life it was not that big. And now a lot of departments are 20, 30, 40, 50 child life specialists. And so I started when there was only like 5 child life specialists in a department, and we were doing our best in reaching so many families. So, and I've dabbled in inpatient, outpatient. I love emergency room work. I love the unexpected. not really knowing who's coming through the door, how they're coming through the door, and then they leave feeling so empowered and just feel so proud of themselves. And then that relationship with their parent and going through something together that was hard and knowing that they could do that, and specifically with their trusted adult, is just, it's honestly a little mind blowing to me that we get to be a part of that. So that's one of my true loves. Too bad ER work isn't 9 to 2. It is not.
It's true.
So honestly, but it worked for me. So as along in this journey of dabbling in child life in different areas, I also have 3 children. My oldest, Ayla, who is 14, my middle, Hudson, who is 13, and then Lincoln, who's 9. And so throughout my child life journey, we have adjusted my child life schedule to work around their life schedule. And so I've been extremely privileged to continue to do child life work, but it looks very different every single year. That means a lot of night and weekends, but I had the great honor of doing that and still being a stay-at-home mom. So I got the best of both worlds, I think. I have a husband, Eric, who is the logical human in our life, where I'm
We all
all,
need one.
yes, all heart. I am, oh man, I'm all heart, but he's all logic, and we're just like a really good team together, and it works well for us. And also, I think honestly, it worked well for me continuously staying in child life, even though I was a stay-at-home mom, because logistically, he realized I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was having a little bit of an identity crisis after having children. I was like, no, 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 I'm a child life specialist. This is what I've done my whole life. I knew in 10th grade I wanted to be a child life specialist because I started volunteering at a local children's hospital and saw child life specialists in a playroom doing medical play. And I was like, yeah, that's it
Yeah.
right there. That's what I want to do. And so
Yeah.
I've known for a really long time I wanted to do this. And so I've been able to.
You're accurately describing when people say it's not a job, it's a calling. And
Oh,
that's what you're doing.
absolutely. Absolutely. Currently, what I do is I am the founder and owner of Children's Coping Connection. So I own my own private practice, and I do lots of contract work with different children's hospitals who don't have a child life specialist in a certain area. And I do a lot of grief and loss work with different hospice or schools, community-based settings who are really looking for that support on how to explain death or a really traumatic event to their community, or to parents who are really looking for those words that they need to support their children.
Well, let's start there. How do families find you or get in touch with you?
Part of, working in the same state for a really long time, and I don't know what it's like in Texas. I only know what it's like in Minnesota, but
Yeah.
we all like know each other, child life specialists. Like we really know each who each other are. Even if somebody lives in Minnesota that's 4 hours away from me, I know who their child life specialist is because we've done so much transfer to different hospitals. Especially, I think maybe, honestly, maybe working in the emergency room, I just know where these kids and families are coming from when they end up
Mm.
with us in these major children's hospitals. And so I have just this wonderful community who knows my name and also knows that I do in-home child life specialist work. And that's a really big piece. So it's a lot of child life networking that I've done over the years and my dabbling that I've continue with. And then also word of mouth. I'm on Instagram, not like you're on Instagram. Like I'm just dabbling in Instagram.
Well, you're doing a great job. No doubt about that. But I
Whoa.
think we grow up hearing it's not, you know, what you do, it's who you know. And sometimes that really helps us in our career, especially when you stay in one spot for a long time. And it sounds like, when child life specialists are working with families, they can say, hey, by the way, you can go talk with my friend over at Child Coping Connection. Is that right? What it's called?
Children's Coping Connection.
Children's Coping Connection.
Mhm.
And she can get you set up with resources or in home visits or whatever that may be.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had this like just aha moment about maybe 6 months ago. And as a dabbler, I've always felt that that is a little bit like, Laura, why can't you just stick with one thing? Like, what's so
Mm.
hard about that? And the reality is I just, one day I was like, no, that was like preparation for me being in private practice. I
Yeah.
just had no idea that that's where I was leading. You
Yeah.
just don't know, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I feel I'm also a dabbler or a juggler or, that kind of thing. And it's really, it feels like a gift sometimes that you
Yeah.
can be done with something and move on to the next project or challenge yourself. And now looking back on, I've only got 13 years of experience, but I'm so grateful I've bounced around from hematology, oncology to NICU to ER to radiology. Just it's such a gift to be able to look back and have had experiences in each corner of the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, one of the topics I wanted to pick your brain on for families who are listening today is the way you incorporate therapeutic play. And we throw around the term therapeutic play like people know what we're talking about. Right. And I think sometimes we can be compared to play therapists, and we are
Mhm.
always quick to say we are not play therapists. We are certified child life specialists. And it is a little bit of a different discipline, although play is, multifaceted, and we both, clinicians use it in different ways. But
Yeah.
how do you how did you gravitate towards therapeutic play? And then let's scratch that. Let's start with the question. Can you explain what therapeutic play is for people who are listening?
So to explain what therapeutic play is really hard. Like you said, it's super hard also to, as a clinician, to explain it in one way and parents as another. So I'm going to go with like, how do I talk about it with these families that I'm working with? Because they're like, oh, you're a play therapist. No, I'm actually not a play therapist. I use therapeutic play as my modality. And that's different because when your child is working with me or I'm working with your child, I'm not looking to set any goal. I'm not looking to direct their play in any way. I'm allowing them to use play as a process and really use it as a space for them to process whatever is going on in their life. So, challenging life events, big feelings, a new baby in the house. I'm allowing this play to just be and to observe with my eyes what the child is doing. And so I'm not interrupting their play in a sense. I may be clarifying it, clearing up misconceptions, listening to them when they say, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm like, yeah, let's not do that anymore. That's great. Okay, sweet. What do you want to do? Instead of maybe holding them in that space and pushing them a little bit, that is not my job. That is not my role. That is not what, therapeutic play is.
Hmm. And I love that it takes some of the pressure off too, I think, for parents to start modeling that as they play with their kids too, right? There always
Yeah.
doesn't have to be an end game. And I know as an ER child life specialist, especially, we don't really get that kind of liberty to have therapeutic play interventions. So it makes
Yeah.
sense when you have these in-home visits, repeatedly, that you really get to use that intervention. And what would you say some of the goals are for kids when they interact in therapeutic play? Like, what do you hope at the end of that therapeutic play session that they walk away with?
So the first thing I would actually go back to an emergency room example
Mm.
because so I actually do believe that play is so important even in the emergency room. And here is why. I believe when I walk in with Play-Doh in my hand or bubbles in my hand or a sticker chart or something that I'm saying to that child, I'm on your team, I'm speaking your language, and I'm ready to support you. And I don't need to ask you any questions about anything. And when you're ready to engage with me, then we'll do it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What a like calming opener. There's no there's no judgment from the beginning. There's no like what's the word I'm looking for? Like underlying, I don't know, there's no underlying expectation
Yeah.
for when it will be the time. The time
Mhm.
is to play.
Yeah. And when I'm talking to parents about that, I just use the example of like, if you were going to therapy or if you were going to see a trusted adult in your life, I would never tell you that you have 1 hour and you better get fixed, whatever you need fixed by the end of this hour, and then we're moving on.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we would want to ask a child to do that. And by interrupting their play or having like a goal, or even if I'm trying to like loosely have a goal in my mind, it's just, I think it's going to really interrupt the process, honestly.
Mm.
And honestly, we know children are going to interrupt you anyway. They're going to
Yeah.
kick down your process. So you might as well not go in anyway with an
Yeah.
idea because they are so gracious in how they allow you in their space and so amazing that they'll verbalize you or show you that they're not wanting to do that specific thing. And they will give you grace by saying, hey, I don't want to do that anymore, or they'll just pick up their body and move to a different space.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. I think that's such a true statement is kids are not afraid to tell us what or how they feel.
mhm,
We compassionately and lovingly, but very confidently call our daughter baby dragon at times, because she will tell us exactly how she feels about something,
yeah,
which is such a superpower that we often lose as we get older.
yeah,
The other things is when you're watching and observing and playing next to a child who's doing therapeutic play,
mhm,
I would say one of the benefits that you see, not necessarily a goal, but it's just the benefit of a space to process, the benefit of a space to be in charge, the benefit of a space to own with an adult what you're
yeah.
doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that says so much. I think we've all heard it at one point in our career, like, wow, they're just so happy when they leave your office, or they're just so happy after they like engage with you. And I just kind of own that and be like, absolutely. They were given so much choice in this space and allowed to process any way that they needed to. And it was like going to the spa for them. They absolutely loved it. Or it was like taking a nap. Whatever that parent has told me in the past has been a really big benefit to them. I try to compare it because it's a really an aha moment for that parent. They're like, oh, right. Of
Yeah.
course, that would make them feel happier. Or, of
Yeah.
course, that would help regulate them. It all makes sense to them.
I was finishing a workout today and I do like the Peloton app and it's $10 a month. So cool. And this
Mhm.
trainer said, if you came and you showed up today and you did the best that you could do, you gave your body exactly what it needed. And that's so true with it sounds like when you're offering these sessions, right?
Yeah.
You gave that child exactly what their body was craving because
Yes.
you allowed the space for it to happen.
Yeah, and play is, I mean, it is a basic need for these kids. It is one step little bit lower than like food and shelter and
Yeah.
safety. And that's why we see kids like when parents are like, oh, they're always fighting with their figurines or they're always playing house. And I'm always so intrigued, like, oh, tell me more. Like, what do you mean by
Yeah.
that? And then kind of breaking it down for the parents because it's like once they see what those kids are doing, they're like, oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. Of course, this has been going on this week, or this has been going on in their life. And no wonder they're doing that. That completely makes sense. And that's why it's so important when a child is in crisis or a family is in crisis that they really think about play, therapeutic play, utilizing play, hands on. That's how kids are going to process. They might not talk to you about it. I mean, how scary to tell somebody exactly how you're feeling.
Yeah.
We as adults can't even do that sometimes. So we definitely cannot ask kids to do that. But we can ask them to play, or we can provide a space in the home that gives them an opportunity to process whatever's going on in their life.
Mm. How would you tell parents to, if they were to kind of try this out with their kids and they're listening to this and say, that sounds really nice? What's a great way to start opening up the door? And there's so many ages that we could go to, but let's
Mhm.
start with like a 5-year-old boy or a 5-year-old girl or just somewhere in that age. What are some of the go to things you would get started if you had no information and they were just kind of going to show up to your office? What would you have out?
I am big into large gross motor because I don't think kids get enough of it, right? So if I was doing like a feelings check-in, I'd have giant pictures of feeling faces on the wall, and then I'd have a bunch of cush balls, and like that's how we would check in for the day. I wouldn't ask them to sit. I wouldn't ask them to come to my office space. I would maybe do this outside. And I would say, "How was pizza today at lunch?" Or, "How was school lunch today?" And then they'd chuck the cush ball at whatever feeling that was. And then, "How was math today?" Chucking the ball at whatever. And then, like, "How did it feel when you realized mom wasn't picking you up from school today, even though she usually does that?" And then they would chuck it at, worried or frustrated or sad, or confused or whatever that is. So just, it's really about checking in a really, like, again, nobody wants to tell people how they're feeling, even kids sometimes, because sometimes they don't have the words. And so to put them on the spot like that, but I can get them to move their body so much easier when we're playing and engaging together to express ourselves. And, another thing I love to do is water balloons, sidewalk chalk, like we're drawing our faces. I have the great honor of having punching bags in my office, so I get to do that with them. And we just go out there, and there's this idea that everything has to be intentional. And I think a lot of it is the intention of a parent comes from our life is very busy and my children are overscheduled. So it's hard when parents are asking me, "What can I do?" The reality of what they can do is like slow down a little bit and
Hmm.
like make some time for play.
Yeah.
And 'cause play is connection. And it doesn't have to be all day long. It can be 15 minutes. Or I liked, a shameless little plug of like Sarah from Mighty and Bright, who I absolutely love.
Yes. Oh,
Those
we not shamefully, like we plug her whenever we can. Her stuff is incredible. So Sarah Alschler at mightyandbrightco.com. You're welcome.
Yeah, totally. But those special time cards, and honestly, families who are in crisis, even I don't even really like to have huge in-depth conversations with parents because they'll be like, "Oh, what did you do in session today? What could I bring home?" And honestly, I just give them a couple of these cards because they can't come up with stuff. That's
Yeah.
so challenging for them to even think of one more thing in their day. But if I give them a couple cards, I think it kind of gets their wheels turning a little bit. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that."
Mm.
And then I always remind them, please set the timer for 15 minutes. That
Yeah.
15 minutes is for you. So you don't have to worry about, are you playing too long and you're going to miss your next webinar? Are you playing too long and you're going to miss your next Zoom call?
Yeah.
It's the 15 minutes for you, and then it's the 15 minutes for the child. So they know when their time is done. They know they can watch it if it's a visual timer. And then it's a huge impact of connection that's all done through play.
I'm sure you have a million answers to this question, but what are some of the things you've learned from kids as you've watched them play over the years?
Play is so essential. It is incredibly essential to every human being. And if you really, truly want to connect with a child or a teenager, you need to play with them. It is your way to say, "I'm here for you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to support you." Play is that modality it is a gateway into them. And I don't take that lightly at all. Like, I am absolutely honored to be walking beside these children and these families. But what I've really learned is if I want to really know their story, I have to be willing to play. There's no other way.
Hmm.
There just isn't. It's how they communicate. It's how they express themselves and the stories that I have heard because I have sat and played and listened, like really listened non-verbally and watched them play, I mean, these stories are amazing that these children go through.
Mm. That's so impactful. The other thing that's built and surfaces during play is trust. And
Oh,
that's really what you're getting. And we as child life specialists try to tell as many healthcare providers as possible. Like you spend your first 3 minutes playing with your patient. I don't
yeah.
care if you're an MRI tech or a neurosurgeon. Like
Yes.
you can build this trusting relationship that will carry you throughout the length of your relationship with this child.
Oh, absolutely. It's not big. It's
No.
literally like acknowledging that you see that the child has a Spider-Man shirt on. That is playful. That is
Yeah.
playful, right? I
Yeah.
think it's hard, like you said, it's really hard for people who have not dug into this work of play. It's mind-blowing if we tell them like, "Oh, you just like 3 minutes, that's it, I promise." They'll be
Yeah.
like, "No way, it's not gonna be 3 minutes. That's not how anything works in this world." But it does. It
Yes.
really, really
Yeah.
does. And it's like as simple as like, take your glove, put your gloves on, grab an extra glove and blow it up and
Yeah.
make it into whatever animal or a hand face. And that's playful. Literally, you're telling the child, I get you. I'm speaking your language. We can
Yeah.
do this together. I'm going to work hard on building this trusting relationship, but I'm going to attempt. I'm going to try. It's just
Hmm.
like it's like planting a seed of trust of like, I know you don't have to trust me yet. It's fine. You don't know me. I'm a complete stranger, but I'm just going to plant this seed. And if you want to engage with me, that's awesome. If you don't, that's fine too.
Mm. It's so true. It's like if that example you gave, the provider, every time they walked into the room, did this hand balloon or whatever it looked like, this glove balloon.
Mhm.
The second time they came back, they did it. The third time they came back, every time they came back, eventually they're going to crack the door and the kid's going to say, come in, come in. And what
Yes.
kid does that to a provider, you know? And it's the
No.
reason why child life, we knock on the door and kids are like, "Hey, she can come. She's fine," you know?
Yeah, she's
Um,
like, she's
and
like,
it's
come.
it's not because we've put magic fairy potion on them. It's because we play.
Yeah. I mean, we might a little, just a little
You're
bit.
not supposed to talk about it, okay?
Okay. Leave that
That's
out.
the next episode is the recipe for child life fairy dust. Stay
Oh,
tuned.
we're gonna just give it away. You're just willing to just give that away.
I guess we'll see. Oh,
I have to tell you one more thing about therapeutic play because I think it's really important for child life students. When I was a student, 23 years ago, I read all the child life books or the ones that were available 23 years ago. But I had the great opportunity 5 years ago to develop a child life master's course, so therapeutic play for child life professionals. And that is when it was so reaffirming for me. You read those books, and I won't tell students, but you'll read them and then you won't read them again for a really long time, but nobody needs to know that. Um, and then
exactly.
you reread them and you're like, oh, well, of course, yes. And that's what happened. I started rereading all of these articles and all of this evidence base and all these books. And I literally was like, oh my gosh, this is why therapeutic play is so important. This is why play is so important. This is why we have to keep this centered in our profession.
Mm.
Because if you truly want to make a connection with a child or a teen, you have to play first.
Mm. Yeah, I think so often we can get bogged down and say the priority is that they know this intervention. Why that may be true, and it may make the care team's job a lot easier. Is it the first and foremost play, most essential thing to building that relationship? It's good to ask those questions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in the ER, I mean, I would always play first walking in these rooms. Unless, of course, but even during a trauma, I always had Play-Doh in my pocket. I always had some little trinket that I had to literally show them, like, I'm on your team, a squishy ball or something. You can always find a way to play. Or even if you can't bring something in, talk about it. Playing is verbally is saying, what's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
That's right. That's another way to say, let's play. Let's play in our conversation.
It's I Spy. Everybody knows I Spy, the simple things you don't even need to blow up a glove balloon for.
No, yeah.
Well, Laura, I have loved talking with you, and it just feels so good to be reaffirmed, about how essential play is, not only as we navigate our role in the hospital, but just for parents to kind of lower their expectations when it comes to a play outcome or it comes to a purpose. Sometimes just play and being there is enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Well,
Thank
if
you so much
people
for having me.
you can come back anytime you want. In fact, I'll hold you to that. We'll do another topic. But
Okay.
if people want to follow you on your wonderful social media or connect with you, or maybe they live in Minnesota and want to hear about your services, how can they do that?
Yeah, so my website is laurasufka.care, and you can find me on Instagram at Children's Coping Connection.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for listening to Child Life on Call. If you head to our website, childlifeoncall.com, you're going to find all sorts of stuff there for parents, professionals, healthcare providers, child life specialists, no matter who you are. Actually, when you just go to our homepage, it'll help you direct to exactly where you need to go. On that, you'll find opportunities and PDUs for child life specialists, parents. We've got a starter kit for you, and clinicians. We even have a clinician course, which teaches you how to be a confident and capable caregiver in pediatrics. We're so grateful that you're here. Please DM us on Instagram. And like I mentioned, when you rate and review this podcast, it helps other families be able to find us. So let's keep doing that. And I will see you again here next week.